Learning for me is entirely about behaviour change.
Organisations are changing, the world is changing, the demographics are changing, who we trade with is changing.
I think hiring for potential is like a bit of a misnomer or just an alternative way of saying hiring the right people.
These are all learning curves and insights that you take on board to try and think about what you implement in.
You know, I entered the world of work without any assumptions that there would be barriers because of my gender.
Hi, and welcome to the Women in Leadership podcast series brought to you by the Business Transformation Network. It's commonly acknowledged that diversity initiatives improve business outcomes, yet still in 2020, only 29% of senior leadership roles were held by women. This series looks at women in leadership, the more personal aspects of their professional experience, what businesses need to recognise and do today to create a more diverse tomorrow, and much more. As always, if you enjoy our podcast, please subscribe and leave a review, and all links from the conversation will be shared in the show notes on whichever app you listen to your podcasts on. So let's go ahead and get started. This episode is in partnership with CoachHub. CoachHub is the digital coaching platform and enables personalised coaching for employees of all career levels. CoachHub's vision is a personal coach for every employee, regardless of their career level. You can watch the full series at thebtn.tv or coachhub.io. Let's go ahead and get started. Today with us we have Vera Gramkow, Global Head of Talent Engagement and Inclusion at DHL, and she'll be discussing accelerating women in leadership and the role coaching can play in development whilst we're working remotely. This interview was part of a video series in partnership with CoachHub. We hope you enjoy. So we're going to go straight in today, Vera. What do you think are the most important skills that are necessary for women to be successful in business today?
Maybe in order to answer that question, we take a step back and think about what women leaders are, let's say, praised for. I hear many people say women leaders are supposed to lead with empathy and be compassionate, drive teamwork and collaboration, lead with purpose, integrate and multitask. And if I think about, is that not really a skill for women or is it a skill for all? I think it's actually a skill set that I could see for all of our leaders happening. I feel we need to also be more inclusive in the approach we take when we reflect upon female leaders and male leaders. So I would even say it's not necessarily a set of competencies or skills that female leaders need to have. Our focus is much more around what is the skill set and the competencies that all our leaders need to have, and how can we then make sure that we help all of our leaders step up to the plate and embrace the opportunity to learn and be the best leader that they can be. And we do that by introducing what we call leadership attributes that center around three things: the head, the heart, and the gut. So we try and talk to our leaders about the fact that we want you to be in your head results oriented and leveraging your strength. We want you, when it comes to your heart, to provide purpose and be motivating and creating trust. And when it comes to your guts, we want you to really zoom in and focus on priorities and be positive about change and everything that's going on. And the role of women, as we think about the last 10, 20, 30, 50, 60 years, has evolved from not being allowed to work into choosing careers and running organizations and running countries. The role of women has still a component of looking after family and looking after, let's say, in the broader sense, the ecosystem that the individuals or the families are in. And so there's an element of, depending on which country we look at, of women being in certain roles at home and certain roles in the business. So they are in tuned to things like, is an environment safe? Do I feel safe? And sometimes they sadly still have to think about also, am I safe for also diversity and inclusion reasons? Women are considering at times the mental health component much more Whereas sometimes I perceive men to be more in tune with the physical health component. And again, I'm generalizing, so it's not a statement for everyone.
And how did your organisation continue the development of your people during the pandemic, and how does it plan on continuing in the near future?
So fostering the visibility and the development of female leaders has, even already before the pandemic, been a focus point for us as part of our strategy of being an employer of choice and a provider of choice and an investment of choice. So when it comes to being an employer of choice and a great place to work for all, we already kicked off something that we call DHL for Her, which is a focused program to not only give female leaders across the organization and across different levels in the organization the visibility, but also the targeted development so that they can excel and really move us forward in the business. We have different components under DHL for Her, which center around inspiration, connection, and development. So inspiration is all about how do we tell the stories of our amazing female leaders? How do we make sure that we inspire younger female talent to reflect on the possibilities that they have with us as an organization? In the connection bit, we are, for example, having female breakfasts around the world where female leaders come together with business leaders and talk about business. They don't talk about necessarily just themselves, but they talk about what's important to us in the business, how we make our numbers, how we can identify new business opportunities. And we see those breakfasts, those networks of women coming together as an opportunity also for top level leaders to get to know these women and get to know their perspective, because many of our clients and customers are also female. So it's good to hear what's important to them and how we can use their ideas and bring them back into our business. And when it comes to the third point, the development piece, we've just now, in the middle of the pandemic, launched a new mentoring approach for female leaders, where we match female leaders with mentors, again, across the world, across different areas of the business, and where they now set out to truly build out their career paths and build out their individual development plans.
Right. And where would you say that new ideas and creativity for your programs comes from?
So one thing is we start with data. What do we know? What do we know of our people currently? What do we know of their career aspiration, of their current strength, of their current individual development plans? So analyzing what we know today. Then we look at what's out in the market. Yeah, we speak to other organizations about their best practice. We try and understand what are they trying to do, what is the culture they're creating, and what can we learn from that. And then we bring that in-house and match that against our culture and our leadership attributes and our passion for engagement. And we say, what of those elements might be doing something for us? The next step is to say, how can we involve those people who ultimately should be benefiting from it? It's almost like adapting to product development and sales techniques that we see in other areas outside of HR or the talent space. Yeah, if you want to create a product that is meaningful and that gets market share, you need to know who your target audience is. You need to understand what are they looking for, what are they willing to invest for this product, and then you need to somehow monitor the life cycle of the product. So we try and do the let's say the R&D side of things by looking at our data and looking at best practice. We try to do the product development piece by really co-creating, not only with the females, but also with important stakeholders in the organization to be able to bring different perspectives together. And then if we think about how do we get the product to market? How do we get the female leaders excited about what we're offering? We're trying to venture into moving that online, being very much digital about it, giving them access through the information through an app that we call Smarta, so that they can have information at their fingertips and that they can look at our learning playlists wherever they are and whenever they have time. And then we try to really also look at life cycle management. So what are the offerings that are appreciated by the women and their leaders, and what are the products or services or solutions that we offer that served a purpose for a certain point in time, but that we may want to revamp. So we try and actually think of all of this as almost like a business approach, a business cycle. We try to feed it with data, and we try to listen and feel the pulse. But ultimately, what I will say is the creativity comes from speaking to many, many different people. We are a company that is super diverse. We do business in more than 200 countries and territories. We have people that have so many different backgrounds and so many different passions. So I'd say the simplest answer to your question is listening. Yeah, we listen, and we listen to really hear. We don't listen to respond. And I think that's helpful.
Oh, interesting. And so how would these initiatives be implemented, and how important is it to have board buy-in for this?
To me, two things are very important to get these programs up and running. One is support from the top, and the second is the change management overall. I think board commitments and board buy-in is absolutely crucial, not only because I believe that the board representation and buy-in and commitment to those topics is vital to making this not an HR topic, but a business topic. For us as a very international, the most international company as we call ourselves, it is very important to understand how much we've driven that change management aspect across all of our different areas and across all our different countries. And that starts with the top. Especially young, upcoming female talent looks for visible leadership at the top, visible representation. And as much as we can always get better at, having that woman in that photo that is taken in whatever event, what really matters is to have top level leaders that are committed to the subject and that are committed to really making a difference. And when I look at the board members of DHL Express, I see all of them committed not only to female leaders, but to a great place to work for all. And female representation and female visibility and development is one component of that. And I absolutely appreciate that commitment because it sends a signal into the organization. However, I think as we think about rolling out these programs, and as we think about really anchoring what we're trying to do, and I spoke about many different elements and many different data touch points, that's a work in progress, that's a living thing, it's never finished. So we need to really anchor and make sure that we stay in tune and we listen and we feel the pulse. And we can only do that if our change management has sold the message to all of our regions and to our countries and to the different people in our organization. So I think visible leadership from the top opens the door. The co-creation, make sure we create something that's relevant. The change management and giving freedom in a frame gives us a chance to make sure that it can be embraced. It gets that local flavor. It gets that buy-in, and it gets that heart that it needs to speak to people. So it's ultimately all about partnership for me, and about, as much as I may sound like a broken record, staying in tune and listening to understand. And then we can see what still needs to be done.
100%. Thank you so much for your time today, Vera.
Thank you so much for tuning into this episode. We hope it gave you a little more insight into what it means to be a female leader today. For more content like this, please subscribe to the BTN website, and we'll see you next time for another fascinating conversation. Thanks.